Hello and welcome to Merlin's Manor. Today I'm giving my thoughts on the special edition Final Girl feature, North Pole Nightmare, which has Krampus as the killer with his big bag of terrible gifts going against either Mrs. Claus or Cindy the Elf at Santa's village. I already have a playthrough up on my channel if you want to check that out to see how the game plays. So let's get straight into my my thoughts on this feature film for Final Girl. Now, Krampus adds the mechanic of him throwing out gifts each round into adjacent spaces. Some of those gifts are good gifts from Santa, and some are evil gifts from Krampus. When you venture into a space with a gift, you can choose to open it and get either a good or a bad effect from that present. Some are simple things like more or less time, raising or lowering the horror, and so on. Others are gifts from Santa, which are very powerful benefits. But some are Krampus presents, which have very terrible things that will happen when they are opened. If victims move into a space with the present, then they will always open the gift, even if escorted by you before you get a chance to open it. If it is a Santa present, then you remove the top present and you get nothing. They kept it for themselves, those greedy little victims. If it is a Krampus present, then something bad will happen based on the top Krampus gift card. And if the symbol is an immediate effect, then either good or bad, then it just happens the same as if you had opened it. Now, this mechanic is very interesting. I didn't often open gifts because I didn't much want to press my luck, but I did sometimes go for it, and sometimes it paid off, and sometimes it didn't. But live with my choice, I had to. It could be annoying, though, when the victims would open gifts and bad things would happen, or a bummer when you saw that Santa present go bye-bye. I did find the setup of the gifts, shuffling them face down, to be a bit fiddly since there were so many of them, and an accidental flip-up would then lead to having to remix them, reshuffle the whole group. And so I found that a little fiddly with how many of those that you had to kind of shuffle up at the beginning of each round. Krampus himself as a villain seems fairly middle of the road when it comes to difficulty. Not terribly difficult to defeat, but can certainly give you a run for your money. He does tend to rely on his gifts for a lot of the bad that happens during the main part of the game, that is prior to the finale, while doing a fair amount of chasing down elves and taking them out. There is a time when he disappears and then reappears in your space during the next killer phase, as well as a time when he gives chase across the board to attack you. But for the most part, I found him easy to avoid for the first part of the game. His max damage is 4 if he gets all the way up on that Bloodlust level, but he can be kept to 3 damage if you keep him from maxing out the Bloodlust. He also has a minor dark power that can insta-kill you, so watch out if that one ever comes up. Overall, I found Krampus enjoyable to play against. I wouldn't place him in my top 5 killers so far, but he would probably fall somewhere shortly after that, maybe around 6th or 7th. As far as the location goes, it is an interesting location. I don't fully appreciate the art on the location just because it is a bit busy, which makes it difficult at first to see where the various spaces and pathways are on the board, at least at a glance. After a few plays, you will likely have the pathways memorized, and it'll become less of an issue. But I definitely feel it worth mentioning that this can be a bit difficult at first because the artwork is a little bit busy and just hard to see those pathways. The elves can be really annoying because they cost you a time for each elf in a location you enter, as they like to talk your ear off and waste your time as you're trying to deal with Krampus. This is certainly a challenge to overcome if you want to focus on saving at least a few to unlock your ability, or if they are in your way to getting to where you want to go. So while it may be annoying, it does provide an interesting challenge to overcome. I enjoy some of the events. Overall, I would say the events seem more helpful than hurtful. One of the most interesting events is a Yeti special meeple that you would choose to place on one of the exits, and then during the upkeep phase, you roll for his movement, that is, do a panic roll, and then follow where it says he goes on the board. Then he would attack for 2 in whichever space he happened into, starting with the killer as the primary target, and then going down this list of different targets that he would focus on. The time he came up, he only managed to take out a victim, but I was hopeful that he would come attack Krampus for me. Santa is another special meeple which allows you to have as many victims follow you as you want. There are some interesting items at this place as well. I particularly like the tree star, which can be used as a melee weapon for 1 damage, and then one time you can use it as a ranged weapon at range 1 to do an extra damage, and then it is gone. I found that very interesting. I also like the snowballs that once revealed, you automatically get those into your hand. There's no search required for them. And then when adjacent to the killer, you could discard it to get a distraction card. Basically, you're throwing snowballs to distract Krampus. Another interesting item were misfit toys, which you would place out, and they would go in each of the different exits, and they would move 1 space each upkeep phase. And if they ever reached Krampus, they would blow up and do 1 damage to Krampus. It was fun releasing them from all the exits and watching them chase Krampus down for some damage. Another fun item is Santa's sack, which would allow you to go through the unused items and pick any item to use. I did find Comet as an item a little disappointing, as he basically just lets you teleport to the runway, and you can't take victims with you in that. I would love to have Comet accompany me around the board, but there are just better items in that item deck that I would choose over Comet. Comet would be useful in a very niche situation, but generally I would rather other items. Now, I won't spoil what it is, but I really like Mrs. Claus's special weapon, although I have not gotten to use it yet because it just hasn't come up in the deck after I earned it. As far as the final girls go, I am not too impressed with Cindy the Elf, as rescuing victims only grants movement, which can be somewhat useful to get back out to rescuing or whatever else you need to do. And her ultimate ability, though, is just granting 1 star for movement cards. While it is nice to always be guaranteed to be able to get a success on your movement and more easily get 2 successes, there are just more powerful abilities out there, especially considering that much of your need to move may be done by the time that you unlock this ability. I did enjoy playing as Mrs. Claus, though. She starts out with 6 health, which is pretty good, and then like the Ratchet Lady, she has no upper health limit once you unlock her ultimate ability, which makes her quite the tank. I did find her rescue rewards of hearts to be a bit helpful in most of my games, since I tend to rescue early before I have much damage on me, and they grant 1 or 2 hearts. Plus, she gets all of her health back when she unlocks her ultimate ability, so those last rescue bonuses are really unnecessary at that point. If you do take some early damage, though, those hearts are a very welcome bonus. Her ultimate ability also makes the Long Rest a much more useful card, because you can load up on hearts before going into the showdown with Krampus. It can become a powerful prep card rather than just an expensive recovery card. Now, it's not too hard to learn how to play this feature film. Santa's Village itself only adds the elf time-wasting mechanic, and Krampus's main thing is just rolling a dice and using the panic numbers to determine where to throw a gift. I would place this as probably the 3rd easiest set from a rules standpoint to learn, right behind Camp Happy Trails and Storybook Woods. I enjoyed the theme of this game, and it has added an excuse for me to play Final Girl around Christmas time each year. The items you pick up play well into the theme and fit well. It certainly is fun to go up against Krampus as quite the iconic character. It's also fun to run into Santa or encounter a Yeti. And even discovering Comet is fun. Even though I didn't appreciate his ability as much, the mini looks cool. There's even milk and cookies as a card in there, and there's just so much thematic stuff thrown into this feature that is going to keep me coming back to enjoy it every Christmas season. Now, this is a special edition, and as a special edition, it means it costs a little bit more if you were not part of the Series 3 Kickstarter than regular feature films, but it does come with all these miniatures, which normally you would have to buy separately. You've got Krampus, you've got the final girls, you've got Comet's miniature, and the miniatures add a little something to this game in my opinion, so it's nice to have these come with the box instead of having to buy them separately like for the other ones. However, for those who do not care about the miniatures, it does inflate the price some for something they may not use, so keep that in mind if you're not into using these miniatures. The other upgrade to the special edition is a foil coating on the outside of the box. If you can see that there as I kind of turn it there, and that makes it shimmer a little bit. This is, of course, purely a decorative upgrade, and so keep that in mind. My final thoughts on this game: Krampus falls in the middle of the pack as far as killers go, considering all the Series 1 and Series 2 killers that are out there. I certainly feel I can recommend him. He is also easy to learn how to run compared to some of the more complex killers that you will find. The location is very nice as far as the theme goes. I love the events and the items, though the art did give me some pause. Not saying that it's bad art, just saying that it took away from the gameplay experience some, with making it hard to tell at a glance where spots and paths were. The location rules themselves are easy to follow and don't add a whole lot to the game, but do provide an extra challenge in the time you lose for encountering elves. I would also place the location somewhere in the middle of the road, but there are just so many great locations in Final Girl already that middle of the road is still pretty good in itself. If this is a theme that appeals to you, then I can certainly recommend giving it a go. Keep in mind that as a special edition, you'll be paying a little bit more than for other features, but it does come with the miniatures and that special foil coating. If you'd like to see how this game plays or need a how to play, then check out this video here. And if you want to see my thoughts on Series 2 or Series 1 features, then you can check out these videos here. Until next time, happy gaming!